Hello and welcome to the HTML5 lecture series at SNHU. I'm Tom Adamson, visiting professor. This is lecture 28 already on the Canvas element, and I brought my academic notes with me, and I'm going to have a sip of coffee here. And what I'm going to do here is put a few notes up here for everyone, and this is going to be welcome to the Canvas element. Now we should know from previous lectures what's an element. That's simply an HTML element. That's all it is. And so someone might say, may I see an example, which would be a legitimate question to ask. And a person that would ask that would probably look like this. Have an ear on each side. Okay, so may I see an example? Yes, you may see an example. And what we'll do is we'll go over here to the monitor. And on this monitor, I'm at a URL called cryware.net Ponger. And this is an example of the Canvas element. This is nothing more than a web page seen through a browser. This area right in here is the Canvas element. This is a little paddle that we'll see I can move with my keyboard. This is a little ball that I can hit and knock around here. The number over here represents the current score. This number here represents the high score. If I don't hit the ball right, this will reset to 0 and my high score will stay here. And then once I get to the point where I exceed my high score, it'll say my man. And then this levels me up. As my score gets higher, I go from novice all the way up to expert. So we're going to stay on the screen. I'll just give you a quick example of using the Canvas element, an application of it called Ponger. And I'm using the left and right arrow keys. And whoops, I got to get on there like that. Okay. And there goes the little ball. Whoops, missed it. Okay, my man. So what happened, so there's my high, whoops, missed it. Now let's see what happens when there's my current score, and whoops, missed it. Come on, you can do it. Whoops. My man, okay. I'm a beginner now, I'm no longer a novice. Looks like this will go forever. Well, it really doesn't. It starts moving. I'm a learner now. Boy, I'm really, whoops. Now I got to get back to the point where I can increase it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stay on the monitor there, and I'm going to look at the source code for this. And the source code is, if I look at the page source, it's really pretty nasty. There's a lot of code for the Canvas element. I mean, compare what you just saw there the stuff we've studied in the past on lectures in the past. So this is nasty code for the Canvas element. Let me show you some facts about the Canvas element, and you can see sort of what we're up against. What I'm going to do here is I want to compare the Canvas element, and I'd like to go back to the board here. We had an element before that we called the text area. Like this. And it had an opening tag and it had a closing tag. And I'm going to compare the text area element to the Canvas element. It has an opening tag, and it also has a closing tag. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And then in order for me to do that, I'd like to go back to the monitor there, please. And then while we're on the monitor, I'm going to come here to an example, and I'm going to open this with my favorite editor, which of course is Notepad. And what I want to do now is I want to type in here text area, T-E-X-T-A-R-E-A, okay, and then I'm going to close it, T-E-X-T-A-R-E-A, like that. And then I'm going to save it, do a Control-S to save, and then I'm going to come up here and refresh text area, and what I see, I hope you can see it in the camera, there's a text area that I can enlarge, and I can start typing text. Hey, that's pretty cool for the text area. I'm going to stay on the screen there, stay on the screen. I can just put in the opening tag and the closing tag, and I've got it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come here. Oh, and notice one other thing I forgot to show you. Notice, see my arrow? You see my little arrow? If I bring it over to text area, it changes to a line to let me know that I'm in the text area. You see, it changes to a little vertical bar. Okay, I'm going to come back here to the editor, staying on the screen. And instead of text area, I'm going to put in the canvas element, C-A-N-V-A-S, and then I'm going to close it, C-A-N-V-A, whoops, C-A-N-V-A-S, like that, and then do a Control-S to save it, and I'm going to come here and do a refresh, and we will see our fabulous, what? I don't see anything? Well, that's a bummer. I don't see anything for the canvas element. Well, supposing I put some content in here. I'll say hello, hello there. Okay, I'm going to do a Control-S to save it. I come back here to refresh it, and I don't even see hello there. Well, how about if so what this does, the canvas element doesn't really give me anything, and if I move my mouse around here, it always stays as a mouse pointer. Maybe I need to force it to have something. Boy, this is sort of a bummer, isn't it? I'm going to give it a style. I'm going to give it a border. So I'm going to use my style element, and I'm going to say canvas. That's going to be my selector. Okay, and I'm going to say border. I'm going to put a colon there, and let's make it 2 pixels. Okay, and then let's make it solid. And then let's make it black, like that. And then I have to remember to close it off with this other squiggly thing. And then I have to close the style. All right, so I created a border for it. Now let me see if I see anything. I'm going to do Control-S to save it, and then I'm going to do a refresh. And oh, there it is. There's finally the canvas element. But notice it's not as friendly as the text area element was. I had to know that I have to create a border around so I can see it. And notice that my mouse cursor stays the same. It doesn't give me an indication that I'm in something unique or something different. So this is one of the peculiarities of the canvas element. We'll find there's some other peculiarities. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back to the board. Here, please. And I need to point out on the board some important facts about the canvas element. This is my canvas element that you saw up there on the screen. The canvas element is only a container for graphics. And this, of course, is the canvas element right here. The canvas element itself, as we know, is an HTML5 element. And here's an important thing. The canvas element doesn't do anything by itself. If you recall, when we had the text area element and all we had to do was type in the text area element, it did a lot for me. What it did is that it gave me a nice border, it made it so I could enlarge it, and also made it so I could type text into it. But this right here, this doesn't do anything, and we saw that it didn't. I had to use the style sheet to find out where it was. If I want to draw something on it, I must use script to draw on it. Oh, wait a minute. This is an HTML element, and I've got to use script to draw on this. Well, guess what? This is a good news, bad news. Good news, bad news, because the bad news is I have to relate script to HTML elements. But the good news is, since it is script, I can make it dynamic. But remember, in the other stuff that we were doing, like in CSS3, we didn't have to use any script. And we didn't have to use things that related it. Okay, the canvas comes with several methods for drawing. I can make paths, and these are all going to be in JavaScript. I can make boxes. I can make circles. I can make characters. And I can add images. And of course, what I can do on the canvas element that is really cool, I can animate, as you saw in the example. So the canvas element is only a container for graphics, and it is an HTML element, and the canvas element by itself doesn't do anything. I must use script to draw on it, and I'll show you how we do that. And that's good news and bad news, and I'll go over more of the good news and bad news when we actually do stuff on the screen. And that's where we're going to go next. So if we go back to the screen, please. And while we're on the screen there, what I want to do is show you, let's see, I need to get example, this example here. Here's the way I'm going to set up the canvas element. I'm going to set it up like this. We're going to stay on the screen here, and I'll point this out. This is the way that a lot of the literature will set up the canvas element so you can see it. What they'll do, they'll put inline styling. Remember, we talked about inline styling before when we talked about style sheets. This is not the preferred way of doing it, but this is the way a lot of literature shows about doing it. So all I'm using is an attribute here. I'm also using a width attribute and a height attribute. Remember, they always come in value pairs. Here's the identifier width, and there's its value in quotation marks. Identifier is value. This is the identifier, and this is its value in quotation marks. Notice the same what I used before. Border, only they use 1 pixel, it's solid, and it's black. So when I do this, I'm controlling now the width and the height. I'm not using the default width and the height. So we'll stay on the screen here, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, that's this guy here. I'll close him. So here's example of 1. I'll just move this around so I can see it. I'll stay on the screen. So looking at here, this was my H1, my canvas, and there it is right here, my canvas. This is the web page, this is the web document, okay? This is where the web document, as you remember, is where the browser gets its instruction from. And here it is, the canvas width is 200 pixels, so from here to here is 200 pixels. The height is 100 from here to here. In order to see it, I need to have a style, so it says that the border is going to be 1 pixel. That's as thin as I can make it. It's going to be solid, and yeah it is. It's going to be black, and I can make it any color, but I chose to make it black. And the rest is just standard HTML stuff. Okay, so that's how I'm starting out with this. Now, staying on the screen there, I'm going to move this back here, and I'm going to take this and I'll leave that there like that. Okay, so here it comes. This is the bad news part. What I've got is I've got to use script in order to put something on there. What I want to do now is I want to put a red rectangle on there. So, but I've got to use script to do it. So I need to associate script with this particular canvas element. So I've got to give this canvas element an ID. And I just happen to call it my canvas. Okay, that's cool. Notice it's lowercase m here with a capital C. I'm using camel case. So let's see what script I must use. This is going to be a variable. I have a variable identifier I call C. I could call it anything I wanted to, as long as it meets all the requirements for a variable identifier. This right here is the document.getElementById, my canvas, right here. What this does, this associates this variable, which now becomes an object, with the canvas element. So it's making an association of saying, look, we're going to use script here, but what I want to associate with, I want to associate with this right here, this container. Okay, so now I can create an object of this C, which is this container, and get context for 2D, which implies that I'm going to have just 2 dimensions, X and Y, which means in the future they might have 3 dimensions, right, for 3D. Once I set this up here for my object now has things that I can do with it. One of the things I can do with it, I can give it a fill style, which is red. I can give it a fill rectangle, fill R-E-C-T, that's a capital R. And here's the parameters that I have for it. 0 and 0. That means where it starts on X and Y. This is X and this is Y. This right here is the width of the rectangle, and this right here is the height of the rectangle. So what this does, this sets up the object, and this is the fill style, and this actually will now fill the rectangle with that. So staying on the screen, let's see what this looks like. This is number 2. Okay, and down here, this is now the red rectangle. This red rectangle was created by script, but the script, because of the document object model, associated this rectangle with this canvas element. I needed the canvas element in order to render something on it. But now, you might say, well, that's okay. It's not a big deal. You know, I can do that in CSS without any trouble at all. But the point is now, since this is script, I can make these variables so that I could have this in a loop where the X value is changing, and when it changes, you'll see this rectangle move across the screen like this. Or I could have this change, so it's changing its size. Or I could have this change inside a loop or something where the colors change. And we've seen that before when we were using jQuery. So that's the advantage of using the script here, and this is what I get. So staying on the screen, bring this guy back here. I'll bring this guy over here. I've got the same thing again. I'm going to draw a line now instead of making a rectangle. I have the same stuff up here that I had before. This hasn't changed. This is defining where my canvas is. This hasn't changed. This is relating the script to the dynamic script to the HTML canvas element. This hasn't changed. It's still the same thing. What has changed here are the methods that I can use. I can use a move to. So I've got a little pointer that's invisible that's moving to the 0, 0 coordinates in my canvas element. And then I want to make a line to 200 along the x and 100 along the y. And then this right here, stroke, that means draw the line now. So I can move the line around and then draw it when I want to. So let's see what I get when I do that, staying on the screen. And I come right here and I go this way. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So the coordinates of my canvas are, this up here is 0, 0. And that's where this line started. This is 0, 0 on my canvas element, not on my web page. And then this right here says line to 200, means 200. Well, wasn't my canvas 200 wide? So over here on the x-axis, line to 100, which means down this way, because, and you might say, wait a minute, that's a negative direction. Shouldn't that be a minus 100? No, because when you measure on a web page, it's from the top. Any positive number means down this way on a web page. Any negative number means up this way. So this means I'm coming down 100, and wasn't that my height was 100? You can't see it here, but it is. So then when I said stroke it, that's what it did, and the default color was actually black. Okay, let's go back to the board now. Coding for graphics using the canvas element is easier, E-I-S-I-E-R, if we use this is OOP, O-O-P. Coding for the graphics using the canvas element is easier if we use object-oriented programming or a JavaScript library. And in our next lecture, that's what we're going to use. I'll show you how to do object-oriented programming in JavaScript. And then, to wrap up our series, we are going to use a JavaScript library that uses a canvas element that's called 3JS. And we mentioned this before. This was the one that was developed by MIT for doing really cool three-dimensional stuff. Okay, that's it for this lecture. Thank you for attending.